All right, guys, welcome to the Digital Barbell Podcast. Thanks for being here. We've got a great Q&A episode for you today. We're going to be talking about everything from the carnivore diet to alcohol and fat loss to books that we recommend, mobility, all kinds of good stuff.
But we have an even better sponsor.
Who's the sponsor?
How do you say this?
I don't know. ACCO. How do you pronounce that? ACCO?
ACCO Staplers.
If you're not watching this on YouTube, Blakely has brought her stapler collection into the mix here today.
So I have a really cool old school, if you know me at all.
Imagine if this is somebody's first time finding this podcast.
They're like,
I thought
this was digital barbell. No, we're talking about staplers. Okay, I used to work at Rice University, and I have this really cool old Rice University stapler, and I didn't steal it. They were like, you can take this home with you after working here for 18 years. This is what I got, is this old school stapler, because I loved it so much. Too. And then this was my grandpa's, this Ole Miss. He went to Ole Miss, this Ole Miss stapler. So I just think it's cool. It's funny to me that they're both the same, made by the same company. They're pretty much exactly, same company, both from universities. I was stapling the notes together for the podcast, and I was like, these staplers are so cool. I love them.
Cool.
I love that I have them. They're very retro.
You can't think of staplers.
I just recently had to buy staples too for them. I mean, it's been like years and years and years. You go through that box of, I don't know how many in the box, like 200. That might last a decade these days. So 10 years ago, I bought some staples, and I just needed some. Got some at the store the other day.
We're big on staples over here. You might not. You take it for granted though. If you work in an office, that you might need to have if you work from home like we do, you need a stapler at home.
This was on my desk at Rice. I mean, that's why I had this one. I was just like, oh my God. Like I stapled. I used to train people at Rice, but not workout related. I used to train them for the web applications that we used. But I would take, do a class, and I'd staple.
You'd correlate and staple?
I would staple their handouts.
Oh man. All right, so there you go. We're sponsored by ACCO Staplers.
It's funny thinking about old school stuff, like people who come, so we live in a pretty old house. What year do you think this house was built?
I mean, probably originally in like the 30s.
Oh wow, okay. But anyway, I mean, I would probably say 6 people who've come into our house ask, and I'm not sure if I'm offended or honored. They ask if the previous owner left their things in here.
I mean,
did this house come furnished like this, or because the stuff that we have is old? Like I have, my family's stuff, our old stuff. Like I just like old things, and it's just funny to me. And with this particular house, because the house is old and the whole atmosphere, and people have walked in, like 6 different people.
Yeah, they're like, did these decorations come with this house?
It's like, no, they're mine.
I mean, is that a normal thing to like buy a house and like, I'll offer you $100,000 for the house, and I want all the decorations that are in here too.
Everything in it. It's
just leave it all.
It's just funny.
I'm getting rid of my stuff. Man. Okay, so
let's get back on topic.
Yeah, no, that was good. Before we get into the Q's and A's, though, I hurt my back yesterday. I'm currently upright. If you're watching this on YouTube, it took me about an hour to an hour and a half to get in this upright position.
We've been waiting for him to stand upright so we could record this.
I was literally walking around like this all of last night and this morning. So I want to talk about, what are you supposed to do in these situations when you get hurt? Kind of what had happened was we worked out Sunday, felt completely normal, worked out Monday. I did heavy back squats, RDLs, and some other stuff. Ran a couple miles on the treadmill. And as I was going to bed that night, I was kind of like, my back feels a little achy. Nothing out of the ordinary, like red flags or anything like that. Went to bed and woke up and didn't really think about it at all yesterday. On the menu for the workout yesterday was some barbell rows. And
Pendulay style rows, where you're bringing the weight from to the ground every rep.
Yeah. And I looked at what I did last week. I used the same weight as last week because I was kind of working at the bottom of the rep range. And I was actually, after my first 2 sets, I was up 4 reps over what I did last week. And then literally as I was, during my 3rd set, which was going to be my last set, I was on rep number 8. I had gotten 10 in my previous 2 sets. And then I somehow in this instant remembered that my back was feeling fatigued the night before. And then I did rep 9, I did rep 10, and I felt what I call like a zinger in my back on rep 10. And I've had enough of these little back tweaks to know that, that little zing that you feel is kind of like the precursor to probably some muscle tightness that's about to happen later on. So I called it quits on the rows. I tested out doing some curls, a couple other things, and I was just feeling like an increased amount of tightness when I did anything else. So I literally just got on the treadmill and did some walking. And then we drove the dogs over to a park, took them for a walk. And after I just sat for like 10 minutes in the car getting to that park, I could barely, get upright. And I was walking like an old man, felt very fragile yesterday. So anyway, that's kind of like what happened. And that's really all I need to know about what happened. I think it's easy to kind of like stress out a ton when you like what exactly happened,
Hyper
like
focus
what is
on
wrong.
like figuring it out.
It doesn't really matter
Yeah.
what exactly is mechanically wrong, if there is anything, or if it was just a muscle spasm or whatever. It doesn't really matter because the course of action forward is basically the same. Now, like if I had what are called red flag symptoms, where I'm like having numbness or tingling in a limb or weakness or anything really serious like that, that's not what I'm talking about here.
Right.
I'm talking about a regular old back tweak, which probably a lot of people listening to this have had before. So the first thing you got to do in these situations is don't freak out. Don't catastrophize. Don't think that you're broken. Don't think you have to immobilize yourself, that you're never going to be the same again. There's so much psychological stuff that goes into coming back from an injury that if you start down that path, not only are you going to take forever to heal, but you're going to be afraid to ever get back in the gym, in the future.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get back in the gym. I'm not freaked out. I know that I will be made whole again. I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
So that's the first
hardest
thing
thing to do, though. I go down that road of like, I'll never do this or that again.
Right.
It's really hard to stay away from that mentality.
Right. So that is an important thing.
Because you feel fragile at this moment. Like,
Yeah,
you
for
feel
sure.
Like you can't get
I don't want to
upright.
sneeze. I don't want to
Yeah.
trip on something.
Yeah.
I know that would not feel good, but I'm
Right.
not overly going to think about it. I'm just going to focus on standing at my desk, doing my work, and figuring out what I can continue to do.
Yeah.
And that leads into the second thing you got to do when you have one of these little tweaks is do things that build confidence in what you can already do and reassure the fact that you're not broken. So for me, like walking around feels fine. When it comes time to train today, I'm going to see if I can do things in a standing position that don't make the pain worse. Maybe try some curls with some light dumbbells, maybe some lateral raises.
Yeah.
I'm basically going to test things out and see what I can do that doesn't increase pain.
Right.
Even some air squats, basically going to try to do what I can. And then step 3 is to try to smoothly get back into things that more resemble my actual training. So maybe, today we're recording this on Wednesday. Maybe by Friday I can do a goblet squat, or maybe by Friday I can do a good morning. I'm just going to test things out that are actually more like the exercises I do in training. And that's just going to, continue to build the momentum, build the confidence, and get the blood flow back in the areas that might be affected.
And then maybe you can do regular weight bench press. You can do regular weight tricep, extensions, like things like that. Like there's probably several things in your regular training that you can do without pain.
Yep. And then step 4 is as I can add back in the movements that are really close to where I felt the pain.
Right.
I can start experimenting with different weights that I can go through the same range of motion without causing or increasing any pain.
Maybe like dumbbell rows first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. In a braced position. And then before you know it, you're getting back to doing the exact same things that you were doing in your training, at the time that you had the injury. So I have full confidence that within a couple weeks, I'll be doing everything I was normally doing, maybe at slightly decreased loads, but I'll rebuild back up to where I was. And this will be just a blip on the radar, as the kids say. Okay, that's what's going on with me. I'll kind of post updates in our Instagram story of how things are going. I was actually really excited because I got these new running shoes. I got these Brooks Glycerin. I'm wearing them right now.
Did you say glycerin?
The model is called the Glycerin. So anyway, I got to knock out a couple miles in them on the treadmill, and I like them so far. So I'm excited to get back into to training.
Maybe it was the shoes.
Put some more miles on. Oh, don't say that.
Just kidding.
All right, you want to get into these
Sure.
Q's and A's?
All right. First question. What are your thoughts on the carnivore diet? Is it good for longevity?
I'm not sure why this person specifically asked about the longevity side of things. Maybe they saw a video on TikTok or Instagram where somebody was saying this is great for longevity. But let me be blunt and clear about my thoughts on the carnivore diet. I think when we look back in 10, 15, 20 years, the carnivore diet will go down as the most harmful diet that's ever been promoted to people.
Wow.
Like for their overall health. First of all, any kind of diet like the carnivore diet where you just wholesale eliminate large categories of food is not going to be sustainable for 99% of people. Maybe this is sustainable for somebody who just loves to eat meat, but for most people, they want to eat a piece of cake at a birthday party. They want to eat breadsticks at the all-you-can-eat buffet at Olive Garden.
What about a piece of fruit?
A piece of fruit, yeah. So if you don't know, on the carnivore diet, all you can eat is animal protein, essentially. Fish. You can eat eggs, both the yolk and the white. You can have variations of dairy like cheese and butter. You can have animal fat, tallow, lard, all that kind of stuff. That's basically all you can have. You can't have plant-based foods, fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, none of that stuff. So you're basically surviving on a super low carb, super low fiber, super nutrient deficient
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
diet.
That's the main kicker for me is the nutrients that you're getting from all these plant-based and foods and fruits. And
Yeah, for sure. So that's the reason that I think it's going to be harmful long term. A diet without any fiber in it is not good for your gut health. It's not good for your digestion. A diet free from fruits and vegetables is super low in micronutrients, which, in the short term, not a big deal, but over time, it's going to start leading to deficiencies and stuff like vitamin C, folate, potassium, magnesium, stuff that you would normally be getting, even including a small amount of fruits and vegetables in your diet.
what about the saturated fat? That's what I think about. Like
Yeah.
all the meat, like especially if you're just lots of red meat, lots of eggs.
Yeah, so that's probably the main thing that's the most alarming about the carnivore diet is the amount of fat you're going to get from all that animal protein that you're eating. We've said on this podcast before, even recently, that if you're eating more than 10% of your total daily calories from saturated fat, your risk for cardiovascular disease, high LDL, goes way up. And if you're getting almost all of your calories from animal-based foods, it's going to be really hard to keep your saturated fat down unless you're having just skim yogurt and chicken breast for most of your meals. And, that's just, it's not necessary. And I think that if you're doing this for weight loss, there's a healthier way to go about reducing calories and just wholesale eliminating all the healthy stuff that comes included if you're eating an omnivorous diet.
Yeah.
Hopefully I said that word right. Because at the end of the day, if your goal is body composition change, if your goal is fat loss, it doesn't have to be, it has to come because you reduce the total number of calories in your diet, but it doesn't have to happen because you eliminated a whole category of food.
Right.
You can just decrease the portions of the higher calorie foods, bring in the total calorie content of the entire diet down while still having diversity in the diet. And that will lead to not only better health outcomes, but you'll be able to enjoy your life in the process also. So that's my thoughts on one other thing about the carnivore diet. How are you supposed to have energy for your workouts if you're not eating carbs too? I mean, the kind of training that we do is largely powered by carbohydrates. Of course, your body has ways to create energy out of fat and protein, but that's not beneficial. Like it's not optimal for building muscle and for being able to put a good effort into the gym. So you're basically just like, everything is working against you if you choose to go carnivore, especially your performance in the gym. I hope I wasn't unclear.
I don't think you were. All right. What are your...
Why is our nose running so much today?
It's just, I think actually I've heard the cedar is really, really high these last few days. Kind of messes, but luckily we don't have cedar allergies because we are surrounded by cedar trees. But I know that it just still kind of messes with you a little bit. All right. What are your favorite books that you've read lately?
All
This
right.
one's for you, Jonathan.
I went back and looked at just ones that I've read recently that I liked, and even ones that I've just read multiple times because I really like them. And I tried to not just limit this to fitness books too, because I like to read books about marketing and business and stuff like that too. So the one I'm reading right now, I'm really enjoying, is called The Power of Habit. Got that one for Christmas. It is along the same lines of Atomic Habits, but it talks a lot about research in it, and it's really given me some ideas of things to use with clients to help them build habits based on the research that's been done on how do we form habits and how do we get rid of bad habits. So if you're somebody who's trying to establish more healthy habits, definitely check that one out. On as far as nutrition books go, the best one I've read recently, and there really aren't that many good nutrition books out there, which is hilarious, is Alan Aragon's book, Flexible Dieting. It's a little heavy on the science side. So if you're somebody who doesn't really know much about nutrition at all, it might be a little bit of a slow read, but it's a really good book too. So Flexible Dieting from Alan Aragon. My go-to that I would just like to read as a refresher on, creating content and making sure that our business is in tune with what is the most helpful to clients from a messaging standpoint is Seth Godin's book, This Is Marketing. If you own a business or you just, want to be able to talk to people and make sure you're talking to them in a way that will be relatable as far as your business goes. This Is Marketing by Seth Godin. And then I'll give Paul Horn some props on his book, Radically Simple Strength. If you didn't listen to either one of the podcast episodes that Paul has been on, go check those out too. The thing I like about Paul is it's just, there's no fluff in his writing. He's a great writer too. And he gives it to you straight. Don't always agree with everything he promotes as far as nutrition approaches, but that we can always agree to disagree on things and still be friends.
Yeah. The book I read most recently that I like is the HWPO book, Matt Fraser's story. I like how it was written. I like, how the book was written and how it's, it's just like a fun read.
How it's formatted.
It's a fairly thick book, but it's an easy read. Yeah. I remember I took tons of notes in it. I just found his whole story fascinating, but
that's good.
Yeah.
We actually have a complete list of recommended books that you can download. We'll put a link to that in the show notes for this episode.
Yep.
This next one is a long question.
Oh, okay. This is for you. All right. When you first start working out again after a long hiatus, sometimes it feels like you're losing weight. Your clothes are fitting better, etc., but the number on the scale stays the same. I've always heard that it's because you're replacing fat with muscle, and muscle weighs more than fat. We all hear that. True or not? It's frustrating to see the number not change as much as you want.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Super common too.
Yes.
I would say you could even go back and listen to last week's episode on body composition because we addressed some of this stuff in that episode. So, basically what we're talking about here is this time when somebody is new to training or new to getting better with their nutrition. And this doesn't mean necessarily that you've never done it before. It could come, like this person said, after a long hiatus. You're in this time where you're just extra responsive to both things that you're doing, the training you're doing and the nutrition changes that you're making. So during that time, you have the greatest potential for what's called recomping, which is basically the process of building muscle and losing fat at the same time. If you know anything about energy balance, you'd be like, well, that's not possible because it takes a calorie deficit to lose fat. It takes a calorie surplus to build muscle. How are you going to do those two things at the same time? It's during this time when you're hypersensitive to your training and nutrition that you have the best chance to recomp. Again, if you're new or if you're coming back from a long hiatus. So that's kind of what can make you feel and look different, but the number on the scale isn't changing because those two variables are changing at the same time and they're kind of offsetting what you see on the scale. So it's not really true that the muscle weighs more than fat. They both weigh, I think we talked about this on the last episode, but they just take up different volumes on your body. So 5 pounds of fat that's sitting around your midsection that disappears is going to be a really drastic look. Whereas 5 pounds of muscle might only be 2 fists sizes spread out over all the muscles that you've been training. So it might be less noticeable, but those two things have offset on the scale. So it's not that they weigh different. They just take up different amounts on your body, which is why your clothes fit different because you literally are shrinking. So, this is one of the reasons it's so important to track more than just your weight. Take your waist measurement an inch above your stomach. If you're losing weight, if you're losing fat, you're going to be losing it in your midsection, especially at the beginning of your journey. Take progress pictures, front and side profiles. Use the same location and the same lighting every time and do it about every 4 to 6 weeks. Put those pictures side by side in an app that will let you compare them, and then you'll really be able to see the difference. Don't rely on just swiping through your pictures on your phone. You're never going to be able to see
side by side is so
see
helpful.
the difference. So yeah, that's what's happening when you're feeling and seeing the difference, but not really seeing the progress on the scale. The answer, regardless of that, is just keep going.
Yeah,
especially
because
if
there is progress.
especially if you're feeling better, because
Yeah.
that's really what you want.
Yep.
It's more about the changes that you're making that have a physical effect on you than just the number that you see when you look down between your toes in the morning.
Yeah, and your clothes in the mirror are great ways to know if something is happening too.
Absolutely.
Like they said, yeah.
And if you know that you're getting stronger because you're tracking the
Yeah.
weights that you're using, then you're building muscle, and that's proof that you're making body composition changes.
Yep. All right, next one. If I can fit alcohol into my calories every day, will I still lose the same amount of weight if I don't drink alcohol?
I like this question.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the quippy answer that I usually give people is that technically, yes. Practically, good luck. What I mean is that, like I just said, weight loss or gain ultimately comes down to the calories that you're eating and the calories that you're burning. It's that energy balance equation. So as long as the calories that you're drinking through alcohol, are being accounted for and you're in a calorie deficit, you are still going to lose body fat. If we're just talking about how does this work on paper? So the reason I say practically good luck is after working with hundreds of people, I can say it will make it extremely challenging for you to lose fat sustainably in as much as people would like to if you're trying to fit those calories of alcohol into your plan every single day. Let's talk about why that is. On its own, alcohol is its own macronutrient.
Right.
It's got 7 calories per gram. Again, protein and carbs have 4, fat has 9, alcohol has 7. But that's not really helpful to know because nobody's just drinking pure alcohol like moonshine.
Yeah.
So know that it has calories. It has almost as many calories per gram as fat, but don't get hung up on that fact. Let's zoom out and look at like how is alcohol going to make my life more challenging when it comes to weight loss? It's the trickle down effect that alcohol has. You're going to miss more of your workouts because you don't feel like getting up in the morning, assuming that you're drinking at night. You're going to decrease muscle protein synthesis, which is going to affect the body composition changes that you want to make. You're going to be more hungry. You're going to have more cravings. It's going to be all these side effects of the alcohol, not necessarily having to do with the calories that you're fitting in. Let's just say that you are the person who can really, really stay dialed in with willpower and all that kind of stuff, even after you drink. All right, well, let's say you're trying to have 2,000 calories per day is your goal, and you're trying to fit in 300 calories of alcohol every single day. So now we have 1,700 calories left to work with. Those 300 calories that you're devoting to alcohol are not providing you any nutrients.
Right.
They're not taking up any volume in your stomach. So now we're really trying to survive on 1,700 calories of food to lose weight. Well, that might be not enough to keep you from getting really hungry. And also that might not leave enough calories for you to devote to protein and carbs to drive your workouts and drive the body composition changes that you want to see. So basically you're trying to artificially survive on less calories just to be able to fit those calories from alcohol in. So I would encourage you to go listen to episode 124 of our podcast, where we had Jill from the Sober Powered podcast on. Because another thing happens when you drink alcohol, it's seen as a toxin in your body. And part of the process of metabolizing the alcohol is producing another form of energy called acetate. And this kind of serves as like a substitute energy that your body can burn versus attacking your body fat for energy in the short term. So not only does it have all the negative effects that we just talked about, but you're almost like providing your body with a shortcut of energy to use instead of what you're actually trying to accomplish, burn your body fat for energy in the calorie deficit. Is there anything else you want to say about? I just rambled on really long about that.
That was good.
Yeah. I used to, when I first started coaching people on nutrition, I would, give everybody a protein, carb, and a fat goal if they were getting a macro prescription. And then the way that you account for alcohol in macro accounting is you either take it out of your carb budget or you take it out of your fat budget for the day. And so if somebody's really trying to work a lot of alcohol into their plan, what it can do is kind of artificially push you into a low carb
Yeah.
or lower fat diet than you need to be. And since we recommend a pretty low fat diet in the first place, it's more likely that somebody's going to try to shortcut those calories out of the carbs. And that just isn't beneficial for the changes that people are trying to make. You don't want to artificially end up on a low carb diet just because you're trying to work in a lot of alcohol into your plan. The clients that have the best results limit alcohol to probably once or twice per week and only 1 to 2 drinks on those occasions while they're in a fat loss phase. It's really just about deciding like, what is my priority during this time?
Yeah.
Because I've been in a fat loss phase and worked alcohol into the plan. It's definitely possible. A lot of it is dependent on your relationship with alcohol too. So take some self-awareness. Just wouldn't recommend really trying to like game the system and work a ton of booze into your diet if you really are trying to improve your health and lose weight at that time.
Yeah. It's kind of like when we talk about training, there can be like phases of life for these different things.
Right.
And so it can be a temporary phase when you're removing alcohol if you're really trying to dial in that fat loss phase.
And if you're the person who says like, I can't go without having alcohol every day, then that's a different conversation. It needs to be had with a different kind of professional.
All right. Last one. How can I fit more mobility work into my workouts? That's a good question too.
Yeah.
I would say that I guess there's just like a lot of factors here.
Yeah.
We don't want to remove pieces of our workout. If we have a limited time to get into the gym, we don't want to remove pieces of our workout to fit mobility in per se. But if you have, I like to do mobility stuff after a workout. Your body's warm, maybe, like when I owned the gym, that would be the time, if you, after class, people are kind of rolling around on the rollers and stretching and working on things like that while they're talking to people.
Yeah,
so,
you're going to get more out of it if you do it when you're warm than if you're cold.
Yeah, it's really hard to like even be sitting or standing for, your work day or whatever, or getting up in the morning and trying to stretch the first thing, I think. But so if you can carve out 10 minutes after your workouts, that's a perfect time to start to carve in some more mobility work. As long as it's not like pulling away from something that you're doing in your training plan already. If you don't have that kind of time, then working in some mobility, like when you're chilling at night and watching TV, getting out of like a mat or something that you can use and just spending 10 or 15 minutes while you're watching a show in various stretches.
I would even say like, think, what are you trying to get more mobile in?
Yeah.
Like, is your like thoracic spine lacking in mobility? Are your hips lacking in mobility? Your hamstrings, your ankles, whatever? Is there an exercise that we can put into your training that will put you through the range of motion that you want to get more mobile in under a load? Because that will have more effect on you gaining mobility in that range of motion than just doing it, in an isometric or static stretch without a load.
Makes me think of the front rack position and a front squat. I think this is something that a lot of people who haven't trained regularly struggle with. And this can be something that like, it's hard to just stretch this into position. We have to like set a bar on here, load it, work this position to get it to improve.
Or somebody who like feels like they have bad posture, and maybe they're saying like, I need to work on my mobility because I have bad posture.
What about like some rows, some face pulls, things like that to help build the muscles of your upper back?
Exactly. Strengthening the muscles around the area where you feel immobile can help fix the problem without spending time doing passive type stretches too. Like, if you're somebody who's like, I can't even touch my toes, I'm so inflexible. How many RDLs are you doing where you're putting your hamstrings through a loaded stretch each and every rep?
Right.
Things like that can really make a difference for mobility.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't, just back to the original thing that you said, like, don't substitute your training time for mobility time. Like, I've seen way too many people spend 30 minutes on a foam roller before they work out and be frustrated that they're not making the progress that they want. Like, let's devote as much time as we need to training, try to find training that addresses the mobility issue. And then we got to like make time for mobility outside of training, like you said, in front of the TV at night.
Our client Bernie, I feel like we talked about him a lot on the podcast, but I think he puts a lot of stuff in his story. If you're on IG, you can follow him or his feed, but he has really improved his mobility in his 70s. And he's done it like before and after his training sessions. He'll work like specifically on like getting into like that squatted position by like holding on to a bench at first, you know, and it's just like I've worked with him for over a year now, and it's been so cool to see the change because he's really dedicated some effort specifically to that position to be able to get his feet in the squat position, keep both his toes and heels on the ground, and then sink down into the bottom of a squat, and he can get below parallel.
Wow.
It is so cool. And now he can get below parallel without holding on to anything, without assistance.
That's
just like
so awesome.
sitting in the bottom of that squat. And that's a hard position. I call it, back in the day, we call it the paleo chair.
It's tough, yeah.
And what's that guy's name?
Carl Powell.
No.
The supple leopard, Kelly Starrett.
Yeah. So we used to follow his like mobility.
Yeah.
He went through this thing where he like put out a mobility challenge every day of the year, like a really long YouTube video about a mobility movement, and you're supposed to follow along for like the whole year. And one of the specific things that he worked on was this paleo chair position, and it was like you would get up to where I feel like it was like 6 to 10 minutes sitting in that position. I mean, 1 minute is hard. I used to do it at my gym too, get people to like sit down there as long as they could.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah.
Well, okay, well, let's say like somebody listening to this is like, I've got time to dedicate to my mobility. Do we have a resource for them?
We do.
Wow. We have the Bring In Flexi Back Mobility Challenge, don't we? That just lives on our website on the free page. So I think it's just digitalbarbell.com/free.
I'm actually, is it on the, yes, it is. It is on the free page. Yeah. And like a lot of our custom clients, I have a client right now that's going through it. Like if you're just like, this is something I want to work on, I can dedicate time. It's 3 days a week. It's less than 10 minutes a day. But I will pop it on your calendar if you're a client and be like, I want to go through this. It takes a month to go through, I believe. Yeah.
Yes.
And it just increases in the difficulty of the movements and the time that you're holding each position.
Yeah.
But it gives you something to do. It's hard. It's just like anything. It's like if you don't have a plan, you go into the gym and you're like, what do I do today? I'll just do what I feel like. The same thing with mobility, honestly. It's like, okay, you know, what do I do? Like do some of those little split stretches and touch my toes, and here we go. Like it's really good to have a guided plan to tell you like what to do.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, that episode of Q&A is in the books. Let me just give a shameless commercial real quick here. Like if you, if one of your New Year's resolutions was to start working on your health and fitness, to work out more, to start eating healthier, and it's just not working, like you don't have that plan to follow, reach out for coaching. Let's talk about working together. You know, there's only 3 of us in this company, so it'd be working with myself, Blakely, or Haley. We form deep relationships with our clients. You will know that we care about you, and we'll, make sure that you're making progress and that you really do make the progress that you want this year.
Yeah, just reach out, and Jonathan or somebody will give you a call and let you know the different options that we have available.
Yes, and we'll put a link for where you can do that in the show notes.
In case anybody didn't get a look at these bad boys.
Let's get one last look at the staplers, and we'll call this episode done. All right, hope you guys have a good day.